Hey folks, today we're going to be talking about AI customer interviews and something I actually just executed, and I want to be able to show you like what the results and things of that nature are. So first off, let me just back it up. First thing, my name is Bryant. I'm the founder of a company called Owens Worldwide. We produce lifestyle and digital products and productivity products to help individuals live their best lives, right? And one of the things we need in order to do that is to actually talk to people in order to make that happen, right? So that's one of the things that's happening in this particular exercise. So what I did was actually went through and used Claude to generate essentially AI character profiles that I can interview in order to get feedback on one of the apps I'm gonna create. In this case, it's Daypath. Daypath is a goal accomplishment app that helps essentially allows you to put in whatever you want to accomplish by the end of the year, and then it breaks it down into quarters, months, and weeks in order for you to stay on track to accomplish that goal. So with that context, what I end up doing was like, hey, listen, I need to interview some people to kind of just see what some of the core problems are. And because AI is generated, essentially, AI is a collection of the thoughts, experiences, and knowledge of humankind. I was like, well, maybe I can do this with AI. So um that's one of the things I did. So I actually have a background in engineering and product management. I was an engineer for 10 years and I was a product manager for roughly and founder for roughly 10 years in different roles, whether it be fintech or healthcare or and things of that nature. So I do have some experience with this when it comes to doing this on a more higher scale. But I was like, let me experiment with this because I just wanted to see if it can give me insights and give me information based on this exercise. So today we're going to be going through a couple of different things. The first thing is going to be I just told you what kind of like why and what this is, but actually let me tell you why it's important. The first thing is you need whenever you're developing a product, right? You need to have that insight from who you're trying to serve. So if it's somebody saying, "Hey, you're selling flowers," right? You need to talk to people who buy flowers. What are the types of things they look for? What are the challenges they have? What are the experiences that they would like to see or feel most comfortable with when it comes to executing that purchase, right? Like you need to understand, why they're buying these flowers or who they're buying them for and what that thing is supposed to do. Whether it be plants or any type of product, any app, you have to understand your users and your customer base. So that's essentially what this was when it comes to like experimenting with AI in this format. And I think it was pretty cool. I think from that perspective, I was able to kind of get some information. So that's what I'm going to kind of go through today is that full process of like one, we just kind of went through like what it is and why it's important. The second thing when it comes to, we're gonna be talking about the prompt in the AI build, right? Reviewing the characters, the actual characters it creates. The next thing we're gonna be kind of going through is the interviews themselves, right? When it comes to that, and like how to actually go through these interviews and how to use that. We're gonna look at some of the insights it created for some of these various profiles. And then we're gonna go through the five because I did five of these interviews. We're gonna go through the results of the five interviews and like how that now then funnels into the marketing piece, right? So a lot to cover. So we're gonna dive right in. I hope this doesn't it can become too long, but I do want to make sure we talk through that a little bit. So there you go. So let's jump right on in. So what we have right now, if you're looking at this screen, is the first thing I wanted to start off with was essentially with this idea, what did I put in Claude in order for it to actually give me anything? And so I'm just going to highlight that right here. So what I put in Claude was I want to create a detailed character profiles. I want to create detailed character profiles for product development with rich backstories, goals, experiences, and a unique perspective on the world. Can you develop a prompt I can give that would develop 10 of these characters? These 10 characters could have parents, dealt with loss, or have unique experiences, but are ambitious and want to make more of their life. So that's what I put in, right? And so what Claude then said, okay, here's a powerful prompt you can use. Plus, I'll build you an interactive artifact to generate the characters on demand. which was super cool. And we're gonna go through that. We're gonna get that here in a second. So I'm not gonna go through this thing in detail, but I'm just gonna go overview it a little bit. Um, so here's the prompt, the character generation prompt, right? Generate 10 detailed user personas for product development research. Each character should feel like a real, fully dimensional human being, not a marketing archetype. And that's the key thing. Like, you have to get the essence of a human being. They have multi dimensions happening in their life, whether they're a parent or a child or a brother or sister, or they have various things going on in their lives. You have to make sure you do that, like when it comes to that piece. All right. Now it goes into the point where it's saying, like, for each character include identity, right? Full name, age, location, occupation, and living situation, backstory, 3 to 5 sentences covering the upbringing, family dynamics, formative experiences, and any hardship or loss that shaped them, a parent's absence, financial struggle, grief, displacement, etc. Worldview, right? How do they see life? Ambitions, what are they actually trying to build or become? Frustrations, what stands between them and where they want to be, what systems, relationships, or inner patterns are holding them back, daily life texture, relationship to technology and products, one thing no one knows about them, a private hope, fear, contradiction, or secret that makes them human. Make these characters diverse across age, background, geography. And so, one of the things that for me, since it's a goal accomplishment app and not geared toward any one specific type, I was trying to hone in on who could be the archetypes or the personas that I can really target kind of going forward. So, that was a big thing for me, is just trying to understand those nuances and the problems that people were experiencing. That way I can say, all right, I can shape the product around this particular area. Right. And I was thinking like, okay, we can move through that way in order to make that happen. Right. So yeah, so in this case, so that's what I wanted to be broad, because I wanted to be broad to narrow it down. So so that is essentially what I provided to Claude, and this is what Claude developed as far as that's concerned. So they end up developing his character profiles, which is really cool. So what we're gonna do is, so this is what it actually developed, and it said, "Hey, you can click to generate 10 characters." So we're gonna actually go through and generate the 10 characters. While it's generating, I can tell you a little bit about this. So what happens here is actually going through and it's calling Claude API, and it's saying, "Hey, based on the prompt that we're providing, I want you to develop 10 character profiles, each with all the information that's listed there." And then from that point, what I do is I call Claude and say, "Hey, Claude, I want to interview this person, right? Or this character." And then it calls that character. Claude then essentially transforms into that character, right? Just like it would do for, like, if you're trying to do it for an interview. Like maybe you're prepping for interviews. Like, it'll take on the persona, just like you said, hey, act as a product manager, act as a legal expert or attorney or whatever the case is that specializes in blank, blank, blank. It's gonna grab all the attributes from that character profile and then use it in when it's writing content or doing whatever. It's doing the same thing here, right? Like, and I think that's pretty cool, because this is a different dimension that I haven't heard a lot of people talking about when it comes to utilizing AI for different purposes. I haven't heard it utilized for, like I said, prepping for interviews or studying, for example, or doing anything like that. I've heard it there, but I've never seen somebody say, "Hey, let me use this for product development research as a starting point." And this doesn't at all take the place of real human user testing, right? And user research. It doesn't take the place, but I think it can get you a step closer if you're building apps and you're building products to get the right information you need in order to move forward, right? In order to kind of like figure out who you're actually targeting and who may have the largest problems that you can then go on and solve, right? So I think that's one of the things. This is going to become a key part of how I build the next products, because right now I'm on a journey to build 8 apps and monetize 8 apps by the end of the year. So I have 2 apps built. Daypath is one of them, and this is what I use for Daypath as far as like to gain more understanding as far as some of the problems that could be some, the various individuals I'm trying to target could have. And not only that, the language they use and things like that, that's going to be either a deterrent or an attractor when it comes to a product like this. Okay, and we're back. So it did develop the 10 profiles. So as you can see here, so we're gonna review these profiles just to see what actually came up. So in this case, it's Marisol, right? And they say Marisol here is a medical billing specialist, part-time cosmetology student, age 27, uh, out of Houston, Texas, medical billing specialist, part-time. I already said that. Shares a 2-bedroom apartment with her younger sister and sister's toddler. Now, I'm not going to go through this, but we're going to see what this actually says here. Backstory. Marisol grew up in a tight Mexican Nigerian household. That's first, so you don't typically see that too much when it comes to these type of profiles. The eldest of 4 kids, her father, a mechanic, was deported when she was 16, fraction the family's financial stability overnight. So, first off, you already have inside the backstory something that is real, right? Like right now, as we know, this is 2026, ICE and various things are happening there. This story, could be somebody's, situation right now, right? Like, and that's what I like about this particular prompt is it makes it very, very real. And here it comes down. She stepped into a de facto caretaker role. She's been sending money home to her mother in Monterey every single month for a decade. The fact that she rarely mentions the world, but she believes her worldview here. She believes most systems are designed to exhaust people into giving up. That's interesting. Ambitions. She wants to finish her cosmetology license by spring and eventually open up a salon that also offers financial literacy workshops for, oh, that's very cool. So you can see already that there's so much more color to these characters and providing the information here. Frustration. She runs out of time before she runs out of will. Between full-time billing and work, night class, and helping with her niece, or days she doesn't sit down until 10 p.m. So she right here, you can kind of see like what she's kind of working through. Her daily life, up at 5:40 to help her niece get ready before her sister's shift starts. Um, she eats breakfast in the car, usually a tortilla and instant coffee. So you see how this thing is actually bringing this person to life. Like I can imagine, like right now, I'm imagining this person, like the things she's going through, her daily routine, her getting her to tortilla and instant coffee, relationship with technology. She's practical and skeptical. She'll try an app once if it asks for a credit card or buries the main feature behind a paywall. The first 10 minutes, she's out. So you kind of get the idea. And to me, I think a lot of this actually humanizes this person quite a bit. Um, she told everyone in her nursing school deferral was voluntary, a choice because she couldn't bear for people to see her as some someone circumstances had defeated. Some days she still wonders who she would have become if she walked into that orientation. So each one of these is a character profile very much like this. So here's Derek Politsky, a HVAC technician, right? Um, here is Priya, Elijah, and then you have 10 of these, right? That you can pick and choose from. And you have very different, different circumstances and different situations. And the big thing is that now you have the ability to choose from any one of these to start a conversation with, right? So let's talk about that a little bit when it comes to starting that conversation and what that actually looks like. So so now that we have the profiles, I'm in Claude right here. So here, for example, and I'm not going to actually go into this and actually do an interview. We'll see, one of these that I've already done, just to save a little bit of time. But as you can see here, all I did was put it in here after it was created. Here are the character profiles. All I did was say, "Hey, Claude, I want to interview." In this case, the person's name was Maricel Vegas or Venegas Ruiz, right? And what they do is essentially open up this user research session, right? They in this case, they actually put a few things that you can add as chips and just ask. So typically I just ask like, how are you doing? Or how's your day? Just to kind of start it off. Um, and then it kind of goes into that. So I actually downloaded these and I can show you what that looks like as well. But here's the interview transcript of that particular piece, right? So here's Marisol and here's her interview transcript. We're just gonna go up to the top and just look at a few things. So what I did was after the interview, I said, hey, can you develop a character profile, you know, and give me details from this particular interview, and also give me the actual transcript itself. And I'm gonna show you how I'm gonna use that transcript a little bit later in this video. But a transcript is very, very interesting because you can go um and actually see exactly what this individual was saying or this character was saying and use the words that they were saying it with. Right here, for example, I just say, how's your day going? And then they say, honestly, it's been a lot. I had a double check in at the pharmacy this morning. Someone's insurance got flagged. And you see like the detail they're giving you. Like, hey, here's the situation that actually kind of happened. Um, I can even see this being as far as character formation for like books and TV shows and various things like that, because it provides so much deep detail as far as when it comes to the 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 things you would want to think about and consider, right, when you're doing that. So anyway, going back to this. So it said, all right, it does sound like a lot. This is me saying it does sound like a lot. Um so I mean you just handle it, da 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 da. It kind of goes a little bit further than that. Takes a lot of strength. And then I want to get down to the one question that I mean, we kind of like we're circling in more of a chit-chatty way in the beginning. And then I get down to say, all right, that's awesome. Grabbing what is already yours is a good thing. I set up a session today to better understand how people accomplish goals, annual goals. Do you set annual goals? Um, and say, oh, that's good to know. And it kind of goes through it. And then I hit the question that is most important for these sessions, right? And I say, interesting, based on her comment here. When it comes to accomplishing annual goals, what is the biggest frustration, challenge, or issue you have experienced? Please be specific and detailed as possible. Why is that important? This question is important in the way it's framed because it puts the user in a mindset of, okay, when I'm doing X or when I'm trying to do Y, what is the biggest challenge, frustration, or issue that I have experienced or are experiencing? Please be specific and detailed as possible. Why is that last part important? The last part's important because it's literally giving the user, the person that's being interviewed, right, the freedom to say as much as possible, right, about it. And then what happens is you start to dive a little bit deeper. Marisol comes off and says time, but not even time that is simple way to complain about it. Is more like I have goals that require sustained focus energy, and my life is structured in a way where I never get sustained focus and energy. I get 15 minutes here, 20 minutes there. I study for T's and yada yada. And she kind of goes into that, right? Um, and then she goes down another thing I don't talk about much is I lose momentum when I hit a wall and I didn't expect. Right. And she starts to kind of go in there. So now, so what do I say after that? After that, I say, so I have time. So I have the time constraint being an issue, but it seems like the biggest issue is continue after your belief takes a hit. What does that feel like, and how do you overcome those feelings? So the big thing is you ask open-ended questions, right? The first question is always the same. Whenever you get into it, you say, when it comes to X, what is the biggest challenge, frustration, or issue you've experienced or are experiencing? Please be specific and detailed as possible. As specific and detailed as possible. Because that frames up the entire conversation after that. Every single thing they share after that point, we can then go in and actually begin to dive deeper on those specific topics. So here she mentioned that time was a constraint, but then also said actually hitting a wall is a bigger issue for her because it takes a long time for her to gain that belief back to try again, right? And you can start diving deeper here. And so after I had that message, here's our message after that, right? And then I dive a little bit deeper and I dive a little bit deeper. Each one of these sessions lasted about 45 minutes or so. And it was a extremely um it felt real, to be honest with you. It felt real just having a text-based conversation like that within this frame. So that's the first part. So the first part was I said, hey, download a transcript, send me this transcript. But I also told it to download. So this is our message kind of going through. I'm speaking through here. And then I get to the end at some point in the session, and I say, here's the profile, right? And so this profile, what it did was it said, hey, here's Marisol, character profile. It reviewed some of these things again. Then it gave me the backstory. Here's the formative experiences. Here's the world view. Here's the ambitions. Again, some of the stuff, the same thing, right? Um, here's the frustration and challenges. So this kind of goes back to that number one question, right? Time is an issue. Belief is a limited resource. The plan as a capability test dynamic. That was one thing she shared in there. And then goal planning behavior, right? How many goals she works on at a time. Granularity problem. The skeleton versus flesh problem. She actually had a nice quote in here talking about she likes to work on the bones versus the flesh and things of that nature, like of her goals. Anyway, lots of good information in here, right? Trust level, key research insights. Start with the right question. Know what she's carrying. Understand who this person is before you start saying, "Hey, this is how you can accomplish whatever you're trying to accomplish." So a lot of these things were very, very important when it came to understanding the character profiles and the conversation as a whole, right? Like, it just kinda going through, it's each one of these gave me this profile like this that I can say, "Hey, here is the analysis of our conversation. Here are things that I wanna make sure that I, take forward and, how I use this kinda going forward from that point," right? So I have 5 of these when it comes to that. And it was like I said, it was really good insights when it came there. I do wanna show you very quickly. I asked it to develop a 5 character analysis, right? All right, so yep, there it is. No, this part here. All right, it's what I said. I said, I want you to analyze the 5 profiles I have interviewed and do the following. Identify patterns in interviews, common things that everyone was saying in similar ways. Identify differences and why they may be different. Um, and why they may have those differences based on their actual character profile. Recommend updates or changes to the app based on the feedback and who the change would most likely be targeted at. Identify words or phrases that these individuals have stated, and um, you know, essentially trying to figure out what words they actually say on a common basis, and just say like, hey, here are words to lean into and words to avoid, right? That they'll see and they'll be like, I don't want that. Identify key questions they may have if they were to show them the app. Based on this, recommend go-to-market positioning and how I should talk about the app now that I have feedback from AI personas. Right. So what it did was it actually went through, said section 1, universal patterns, key differences, app recommendations, language library, section anticipated questions, GTM positioning. And so I'm going to show you that over here. So over here, what we have is essentially that output, right? Universal patterns. I'm not going to go through all of these, but I just wanted to show you this very quickly. But like pattern 1, tools are built for destinations, not journeys. So one of the things that inside these interviews, and again, you got to take this with a little bit of grain of salt. We may have to validate some of these things, but I think directionally, it's helpful, right? Directionally, it's helpful to say, hey, are we going in the right direction or not? Okay, if not, how can we then pivot to go in that direction? Okay, so for example, they're all saying like, hey, it's built for the destination, like with the end in mind, but it leaves people like the app right now does not consider individuals that are on that journey currently. Um, and this is like, what that means. And I have that highlighted here, right? Pattern two, I'm only gonna go through like three of these patterns, probably three of each. Pattern two, external triggers drive re-engagement, nothing internal does. So for these particular users, right, what happened is it was things outside of them that was like, hey, that got them to re-engage back with the goal, whether it be somebody they talked to or somebody they remember, or maybe they're reading a book or reading a magazine, and it triggers them to say, hey, I do want to go back to that thing I was working on. And then the last one here that I'm gonna go through, we have more, but the last pattern here is the feedback loop problem. Short loops always beat long ones. So essentially, they want the feedback loop to be like, hey, you did a thing. Congratulations, you did a thing. You're moving. Now you're X closer to achieving that goal. Um, Going to the next section here, key differences. I think the big thing here more than anything else, and let me close this down a little bit so you can see the whole thing. Key differences here. Internal versus external obstacles. Um, Difference two, sophistication of existing systems. Relationship to accountability for number three. And then it gets down to app recommendations. And I think this is really cool because some of these I'm gonna figure out how to actually incorporate a little bit better into the app. But here, the first one is gonna be the recommendation number one, replace goal setting onboarding with a conversation. So a lot of these users or these AI personas, what they said was, hey, listen, the things don't know me well enough in order for it to actually recommend things for me or set a plan for me because they don't know how my life is. So this is one of the things that it was very interesting to see this here. The next one was the build GPS interface next turn only. So one of the last interview actually, it was pretty interesting because it was like, hey, listen, if you think about how a GPS works, yes, it has your final destination in mind, right? Where you're trying to go, but they work with you. So, for example, they say, "Hey, make a right turn up at this street or this corner," and then it says make a left turn. But if you miss your turn, it just reroutes you to get you back on track. And I thought that was super insightful. Like I said, it was super insightful because I'm like, they're absolutely right. If you don't make the turn, the only thing is it knows where you're going because it has your GPS trend, location, so it can kind of course correct you very quickly. Whereas day path is not necessarily like that. But I think that's an interesting concept to kind of take in. So I definitely want to talk about that a little bit. Um, Again, the recommendations. I'm not gonna go through all of these, but it's a lot of to go through. Here are some of the power phrases they use. Next turn, not the whole route. Built for the journey, not the destination. Turn from where you are. Start from where you actually are. Um, available and usable hours are not the same thing. It's kind of like touching into energy management. This is the person Derek or the persona Derek was talking about. I think that was interesting. Words users use naturally. Mirror these. Intention, track, real, rough week, skeleton. Like these are things that now I can use them in marketing, right? I can use those words. Hey, you have a rough week, right? Like stuff like that. Words to avoid. These are all words that I currently have inside my app. So I'm going to go through and try to um, replace some of these words and see where it's appropriate. But yeah, this kind of gives you an idea. The last thing I did, and this is kind of going through the last piece of this. I know we're already at roughly 30 minutes, so I'm gonna wrap it up here shortly. But um, here's one of the things that I thought was pretty interesting. So one of the things I mentioned before in a different video is something called the ask method. The ask method is that statement that I just mentioned. That's called the single most important question, or what they call the SMIQ. Inside the ask method, though, one of the things they do is they bucket their customers, right? Not everybody wants the same thing. And the idea is that you can go from either perceived or actual customization of whatever your thing is. Meaning like you can talk about it in one way to one type of person, or you can act and then you can send them to that same type of app or whatever the product is, or you can actually customize the app directly for that individual. What I'm always looking at is perceived customization. Like my app can do various things for different people, and it's just about how you talk about it to that person. And but you have to know who they are first. So part of this is actually kind of going through and saying like, all right, what are three buckets? Um, based on these interviews, and obviously it's limited data, so it's not as going to be as accurate. But based on these five user interviews I did, what are three buckets that these individuals would then fall under, right? So the first one was the grinder. Life never stops interrupting. I just need some time to adjust. I just need something to adjust, right? And then they kind of give like who these individuals are, their core problem, what they found, and what they need inside the product, what breaks existing tools, and kind of their whole situation, right? The next one here is the builder. And it says, I have a discipline. I need something smarter, right? And the next does the same thing there. And the last one here is the circular. This is, I have everything I need. I'm just not moving. In this particular, these individuals, they had internal blocks that were preventing them from moving forward. Um, but this is how I plan to use it in marketing. So like those interviews give you so much insight to say, how do you talk about the product? Right? Who are you actually targeting when it comes to that? What problems are you actually trying to solve for those individuals? And then if you do have particular buckets for a group or for your product, it can serve multiple different groups and maybe a little bit different ways. What are those buckets? How do you talk to those people in those buckets? Where are possible ways that you can market to them and actually, gain their trust and gain their attention, right? Um, that's how I'll be using these kind of going forward. But I just wanted to make this video just to kind of show you essentially how I was able to one to develop the AI character profiles, then interview those profiles, and then get analysis and synthesize the data from those profiles as well. That way I can use all this information to make updates to the app, which we're going to be kind of be going through, and also find out what my marketing message is going to be to who, to what groups. And then when it comes to building funnels and whatnot, I can use these buckets for individuals to self-identify. So for example, you may come in and see my app for one way or from one channel and say, hey, I'm a circular. This is what I have everything I need, but I'm just not moving forward. So I'm have, a funnel that then talks to you specifically, on your issues and some things that how Daypath can help in that way. So anyway, I know it's been a long video, but I want to thank you for staying. If you're interested in this type of content, I'll be actually building the changes that I'm going to be making to Daypath and the app on this series from my channel. So if you're interested in that content, please subscribe and we can kind of go from that point. But thanks so much for joining, and I'll see you next time.